it's Derek from Entertainment Stew, and it's been quite some time. 7 months to be exact, but we are back and better than ever. You may be wondering where we have been. Well, it's a pretty long story. So to make a long story short, in the last 7 months, we have turned Entertainment Stew into an actual media production company, have presented our philosophy panels at multiple different conventions. We filmed a short film and then finished a Dungeons & Dragons documentary called Explorer's Guidebook, Taking Your First Steps in D&D. This documentary itself will premiere sometime in December 2018. We've covered a multitude of events, from the Jacksonville Jazz Festival to a great comic book shop opening. And finally, we have even started our own homebrew tabletop podcast called The World of Vala, which is, of the time of this recording of this video, in its second season. We are going through a period of rapid growth, and we would like to thank everyone that stood by us. I would love to shower all of you with gifts, but the only tangible thing that we could give at this moment is a short 4-minute clip from the documentary. So expect more videos in the coming days, and again, thank you all.
What is Dungeons & Dragons?
I like to think of it as a kind of like a living story where the participants, the people who are playing, get to have complete agency in terms of using their imagination and their creativity, and to come up with a story in a collaborative way with the dungeon master. I think that's how I usually try to describe it, a kind of living collaborative story.
I would describe D&D as kind of the perfect role-playing game, where other video games, like, they always have kind of a linear path for you to follow, no matter how many options you have. Like, even in sandbox worlds, there's always a limit to what you can really do in a video game. But with D&D, there's not that limit.
What is Dungeons & Dragons? To me, at least, it's kind of a game that's focused all about creativity, and you have to come up with creative solutions to weird problems.
Dungeons & Dragons is a fantasy-themed role-playing game. It was created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson back in 1974. It was really the catalyst. It was the beginning of all role-playing games. It's the wellspring from which everything else came. It's been through, I guess, over a dozen iterations. The main ones that started with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, they're up to the 5th revision of, but there have been spin-offs, board games, video games, different versions of the rules, international versions of the rules, and you could probably fill a warehouse with one copy of everything that has been published for D&D.
How would I explain Dungeons & Dragons to someone who's never played? I guess I'd say that it's kind of like a game where you role play as someone else, and there's someone who's telling a story, and you're just a character in that story. So it's kind of like an interactive book where you and your friends are all the characters.
How I would explain D&D to new players is basically saying, this is Let's Pretend. Let's pretend you're an elf with a wand that can shoot fireballs. Let's pretend you're a knight with a sword that can cut through anything. Let's pretend you're all in a world where goblins and dragons are real things, where vast piles of treasures await brave adventurers to come and get them. Princesses need to be rescued. Kingdoms need to be protected. And so your fantasy world doesn't collapse into, there's a set of codified rules that revolve around rolling dice to determine the outcomes of certain things you say that you'd like to do.
Why do I think people play Dungeons & Dragons? Because it's fun, and it's fun because it allows us to exercise parts of our mind that we don't get to normally exercise. I mean, what part of your life really requires you to completely think of another kind of character, live in their shoes, learn this kind of radical empathy of trying to live as another kind of person. You never get that in our culture. In our culture, you're punished if you're not the person who you say you are at all times. It's a complete escape. It's no wonder people love it so much, because it completely bucks the discursive boundaries that we live within.